An unusual phenomenon involving the Processionary has caught the attention of Portuguese scientists, particularly in tracts of forests located to the north of Lisbon. In 1997, an unusual proliferation of processionaries took place in the middle of summer. Entomologist Rosa Maria Paiva was the first person on the scene. 15 years later, she's returning with Manuela Branco, a biologist at Lisbon's Superior Institute of Agronomics. Manuela wonders if the disturbing propagation in the summer of '97 may have been the doing of a mutant processionary caterpillar, evolving into a new species.
So this is here the place that you saw this huge infestation, strange infestation of the pine processionary moss in 1997, is it?
Yes, in fact, we are very near the place where it started. In Lisbon, I read in a local newspaper from this area that something odd was happening here, that a high infestation of processionary moss was ongoing. As you know, the larvae of processionary moss develop through the winter and not in the summer. I came here immediately on the 2nd of September, and what I've seen, it was something unique. The larvae had covered the trunks of all the pine trees. So it was the most extraordinary sight that I've ever had in my long life of entomology.
The mutant caterpillars have shifted their life cycle. Instead of developing during the cold months, like the processionaries that build winter nests, these caterpillars develop during the summer. This seasonal shift is no insignificant detail. It produces decisive behavioral changes. In particular, it affects their nest building. By developing during the course of the warmer season, this new version of the processionary doesn't need to fight the cold, so its nest is no more than a few silk threads.
Here we can see very well, very clear, the differences between the larvae of the two populations on this time of the year. So this larva is from the summer population, the mutant one, and she's very advanced. She's on the 15th star, she's ready to pupate. And this one, the little one, she's 1st star larva, she has just born. She's the normal winter population, and this is the normal phenology. And the interesting thing is that you can find both on the same places, and even in some cases on the same trees. So since they live together, they are sympatric, but they are isolated by time. So it's a kind of allochronic speciation, very rare in nature and rarely observed.
Although the mutants appear identical to the processionaries living on a winter cycle, they have most definitely developed specific adaptations that enable them to live on a summer cycle.
And during summertime, particularly on this area, the temperatures can be very high. There are some days where the temperatures are above 40 degrees. So this was one of our questions. How can they survive these very harsh summer times? Because we know from previous research that the limit of survival will be about 32 degrees. So we thought, how can they survive if our temperatures are much higher than that?
To find out more about this disturbing question, Manuela and her team will compare the heat resistance thresholds of the standard and mutant caterpillars. Tens of specimens are being prepared for a stay in a closed chamber that simulates increasingly hot daily cycles.
In the lab, we compared both populations, winter and summer population. And our main conclusion was that they really differ on these limits of thresholds. I mean, the summer population can survive at higher temperatures than the winter population. And the difference is 6 degrees Celsius. So the summer population can have a tolerance threshold 6 degrees Celsius above the winter population, which is really a lot and means that there is an adaptation to survive on these conditions during summertime. With time, in a very, very long time scale, it could give rise to a new species, if there was time for that.
The presence of these two caterpillar populations, able to attack the same pines one after the other in the same year, is a considerable threat to Portuguese forests.
We could observe two defoliations of the pine trees, one during summer and the other during winter, and this can be very stressful for the trees. Also, the summer defoliation is worst because the trees cannot recover no longer. After the winter defoliation comes spring, and during spring, trees reproduce new needles, so it's more easy for the trees to recover from the winter pine Processionary moss.
For the moment, the mutant caterpillar population remains confined to a zone of about 50 square miles. But for how long?
And also, what will be the future of this population? Where it is going to expand? What were the genes that mutated, for instance? Can it happen in other populations? There is still many scientific questions we have.
Scientists continue to worry about the spread of this mutant population. But an additional, more direct threat worries them just as much.
The pine processionary is spreading in a natural manner, but it can also do long-distance hauls. We've discovered isolated settlements around Paris, in Picardy, and in Strasbourg, all far from its original zone.
The Processionary has a secret weapon that helps it to conquer new territories. Extended diapause. Under certain conditions, chrysalides can prolong their dormancy for several years. This extraordinary adaptation mechanism explains the reappearance of the caterpillar in regions where it was considered to be eradicated. So, we're never really sure we've got rid of it. And finally, an accidental transfer is always a possibility. Chrysalides sleeping in lumps of soil have inevitably been transported through Europe. Greater travel is not out of the question.
In Europe, the pine processionary is a native species, spreading as a result of climatic change. But in other parts of the world, there are several highly suited regions for it to settle in. If it were accidentally transported to these places, the processionary will be declared an invasive species.
The Processionary caterpillar's exceptional fertility rate and its remarkable ability to adapt, combined with global warming and globalization, place the planet within the grasp of a conqueror that, to this day, remains undefeated.